Praise the Lord, everybody. Welcome to the Equipped to Serve podcast with Pastor David Whitaker.
Praise the Lord, everybody. Praise the Lord, Brother Andrew. We've been sitting here talking about resolving conflict.
Conflict resolution.
Conflict resolution for church leaders.
I actually have a testimony.
Talk about it.
If we're, this kind of relates, if you're talking about internal conflict, resolving that kind of conflict. A couple weeks ago, you came up to me right before service and was like, hey, I need you to talk about giving. And I was like, okay, that's cool. I'll talk about that when I take up the offering. So I did, and then I go home and I got paid, and I looked at my finances, and I pride myself in, I probably shouldn't pride myself in it, that I've never struggled with paying tithe. I've never struggled with the idea of it. I've never struggled with send that 10%, act like it was never there.
Yeah.
Because the 90% is mine or whatever, or all of it's God's, and let me manage the 90%. But I struggled, and I thought to myself, I said, why am I struggling with this? And I sat there and I thought, what would I tell somebody if they were going through this?
Yeah.
And I said, well, I would tell somebody that you pay it anyway because God's got you.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay. And fast forward yesterday, I get home, I check the mailbox, and I take out a thing, and there's a tax thing, and I think, oh, great, now they want more taxes.
Now they
and I open it up, and it's a check, and it says, hey, you overpaid your property tax. Here's a check.
That.
And I thought, wow,
God's
got me.
God can.
And the atheist would say, well, the check was going to come anyway. You just overpaid. And
right.
But it's the timing of it.
Yeah, exactly. That's the timing. Yeah. Yeah, you did overpay.
Yeah.
Or maybe you didn't.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe they undervalued my property.
Maybe there was some angel in the behind the scenes there at the office and said, hey, look at, whatever.
Yeah, moved a decimal.
You never know. Praise the Lord. Well, that's a great testimony, man. Well, okay, biblical conflict resolution. This is a big thing because I think it's a hot topic.
Yeah.
Especially for church leaders trying to resolve a conflict. So today we're just going to scratch the surface really. What I want to do today is just kind of lay a foundation.
Right.
And we've already been talking about this a few podcasts before. A few weeks ago we talked about leadership and biblical leadership and what that means. And so this may feel like a little bit of review, but really, Jesus is trying to help us to figure out in his leadership instruction, the leadership instruction to his disciples.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, they are going to face serious opposition.
Right.
They are going to be persecuted and run down and ultimately martyred, killed by the same people who they're trying to reach.
Yeah.
They're trying to reach the souls of these Romans and Jewish people, and they are going to be literally beaten up and killed by these people. And so when Jesus says, trust me, offenses will come.
Right.
You are going to face a certain death.
Yeah.
And thank God we here, at least in my circles, no pastor I know has been killed in America for preaching the gospel.
Yeah, it makes you think of
that'd be pretty offensive.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it? If Brother Smith or someone, Brother Worley was persecuted down the road, I would be very offended by that, by the people that did that to him.
Yeah.
And but so there's conflict. These guys are going to face conflict that we would never see. But we do see conflict. I try to put this into perspective for myself because what leaders today deal with in an American church, okay, we deal with such petty things. It's crazy. It's just absolutely ridiculous, the stuff that we have to deal with.
Yeah.
What we try to do, my wife and I, when we planted the church years ago, 2005, we did everything. We tried to do everything we could. We did potluck stuff. We did feed the community. We did outreach this and outreach that, and we would fundraisers. Everything we did We always try to involve everybody that we could. So in our effort to try to feed the community or to reach the community, with the gospel with whatever we did, so the good we tried to do always ended up offending somebody.
Yeah.
Like, well, we're going to try to feed the poor. Okay, so I'm just making this up, but this probably did happen. Okay, we're going to feed the poor on Saturday, so I need all the ladies to bring a dish, right? So all the ladies bring a dish except for one lady who maybe we forgot to call, right? Maybe we forgot to call, and so that lady shows up on Sunday, and says, "Well, why didn't anybody call me? Why wasn't I involved? What I feel." And so then we have to deal with this offense.
Yeah.
Because she wasn't invited to the party.
No good deed goes unpunished.
Exactly. And so it's so what we try, all the good you try to do, you're always going to end up offending somebody over something so petty. We had a situation one time where we were trying to do something for Mother's Day. I don't remember what. I was trying to honor all the ladies, whatever it was. Graduation, okay, you name it, whatever it is. We're trying to honor people, trying to do good. Well, we had some of the ladies got upset because somebody showed up and set the tablecloths on the tables. And when they showed up for church, it was their job, but it was already done. Now me, I would have showed up to do my job, and if it was already done, I would have said, "Praise the Lord! Yeah. Somebody got my job. I can go. I can go have some me time or whatever. I can go kick back. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But no, you're gonna offend somebody.
Yeah.
You better not touch those tablecloths. So here's what I'm saying is, offenses are going to come.
Right.
So Jesus talked to his disciples about this. So. They had to handle real offense, real opposition. We have to handle the opposition of people touching your tablecloths and stuff. But still, it's a reality,
right?
And so, and I don't think that our church is any different than anybody else's church. I think that people are people, no matter where you are in the world, and there's going to be oftentimes, of conflict, especially in a church that's progressive, a church that's trying to do things.
Yeah.
One of the things that my wife and I talked about we talked about this recently, is this is the reason why we shy away from doing things. It's because we don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so my wife and I had to make the determination that, well, we can't stop being the church just because we're going to hurt so-and-so's feelings.
Right.
We've got to still be... We still have to move forward. But so in that sense, in that vein, you still got to be the church. You still got to do outreach. You still got to honor the late. You still got to set the tables. You still got to do the work. And there's going to be conflict.
Yeah.
So this is conflict resolution. This is how you resolve conflict. And the first thing that you have to do is you have to realize you have to have the right perspective.
Yeah.
And this is what Jesus is talking to his disciples about when he called them to leadership. Matthew 20:25. He says, "You know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. But it is not going to be so with you."
Right.
So this is he's trying to tell them right here that the way the world views leadership is not the way the church views leadership. And the reason why we're talking about leadership is because our Equipped to Serve podcast and our Equipped to Serve seminars and conference is geared toward church leaders.
Yeah.
And if there's anybody in the church that needs to know how to resolve conflict, it's the leaders. Because you've offended people.
Oh, yeah.
You, in the good, trying to take the kids to the mall as a youth director, trying to do something good for the kids, invariably, you're going to upset another parent for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And so this makes you go, you know what? I don't know that I want to take them bowling, and I don't want to take them to the thing if I'm going to upset somebody, right? So the good we do is always going to be, so if we can learn a trick, and if we can learn how to handle it and learn how to resolve it quickly,
Yes.
then I think we'll become more effective. If it, at the very minimum, we'll live less stress. We'll live with less stress, okay? If we can learn how to resolve conflict. So this is geared toward leaders.
Yeah.
So again, the leadership principle taught by Jesus is sharp contrast to the natural world, what the world views as leadership. So here in this particular situation, the mother of these two disciples are lobbying for her two sons' position.
Yeah.
She's talking to Jesus about, I know you're going to set up this kingdom. She's thinking it's an earthly kingdom, and she says, "I want my boys to have, the right and the left chair. They need to sit on your right and your left hand."
Yeah.
And this is I've said this before. This is the soccer mom that you don't want to see coming, right? I want to make sure my boys are in. I want to make sure they play the game, and even though they're not good, whatever,
Yeah.
I want to make sure, So she's talking to Jesus, and her misunderstanding was again that the kingdom was going to be a worldly kingdom. So
Right.
And then here's what happened: the other disciples found out about it.
Yeah.
They got wind that the mom was trying to jockey for, and they got upset. They're like, "Hey, hang on a minute. She's playing dirty pool over here,
Yeah.
dirty politics. I want to make sure that we have a say in this. Don't put somebody ahead of us." So all these guys are basically they're lobbying for the highest position.
Yeah.
They want to be rewarded. They want to be regarded. And Jesus has to sit them down and say, "That's how the world does it.
Yeah.
It shall not be so among you."
Yeah. They're wondering who's going to be Jesus's vice president.
Exactly. Who's going to be the top dog here? And this is just in our DNA. And when
Yeah.
I say in our DNA, it's in our fallen nature
Yes.
to try to jockey for position because we have this entitlement pride.
Yeah.
I'm going to use that word in a minute again, but it's entitlement and it's pride.
Yes.
We're born with it. And this is what Jesus is really coming against, this prideful. He said, that's how the world. Now, let me see if I can get to the.
What's that mall incident that may or may not have happened that you're talking about? I might have had the inclination to feel offended that someone was even offended.
Exactly.
Because I was doing something good.
Yep. So you would then try to defend yourself.
Yeah.
Like, wait a minute, how dare you come against me? I'm trying to do something good over here. You should honor me with respect.
Yeah. I'm thinking, how am I going to talk to this guy respectfully to let him know
That
respectfully
he's out of line.
that he's out of line?
Yeah. Anyway, so it's not uncommon occurrence. This what happens here with Jesus is not uncommon. We see it in politics, we see it in families, we see it in business corporations, and we see it in churches all the time.
Yeah.
So we're conditioned from preschool to live in this dog-eat-dog world, that it's the survival of the fittest mentality.
Right.
It's the only way to truly win in life is to make sure that your opponents fail. This is the mindset that this is all based on, I should say. So we accomplish the exaltation of self.
Yes.
We accomplish this by exploiting the weaknesses of our opponents in order to get ahead. And this has become the tenets of success for most of the world. Now, you've heard this worldview, right?
Right. It's the
Now,
lens.
to me, a worldview is just how a person views certain philosophies or certain things of the world, like how things are.
Yeah.
That's a worldview. Now, you can have a carnal worldview, or you can have a Christian worldview or a Jesus worldview, if you think that way.
It's the glasses that you're wearing, the lenses.
Exactly. That's actually right here in my notes. So if you have red tinted glasses, and I have yellow tinted glasses, your view of the world is going to have a red hue.
Yeah.
And there is no way for me to convince you that it's not red, bro. It's yellow.
You're colorblind.
In my view is the right view,
Yeah.
right? I see everything with a yellow hue, and you see everything with a red hue, and so here I am telling you that I'm right, and you're telling me that you're right, and this
Right.
is just our view, and this is this illustration here helps me to identify or to highlight, I should say, the difference between a world or a Christian worldview or Jesus's worldview and a carnal worldview.
Right.
We are looking through the world through foggy glasses.
Yeah.
And Jesus is trying to kind of, wipe them clean, so to speak, so that we can see it for what it really is, not with our limitations that we have on it, right? In 1 Corinthians chapter 2, I'm not going to read through that, but Paul said that the only way that we can see the world the way that we're supposed to is through the Spirit.
Yeah. That's right.
If we don't know God and we don't understand who God is, then how can we have his mind?
Yeah.
Right? How can we wear Jesus's glasses if we don't know Jesus, right?
Yeah.
So that's what we want to do. We want to say, God, I want you to put your Holy Ghost-filled lenses in my eyes. Go back to the book of Romans. We need to be transformed.
Yeah.
Our minds have to be transformed into the mind of Jesus.
Yeah.
In the renewing of our mind, right? So we are all born with this carnal lens. Our eyes see through a lens that has been compromised. In 1 Corinthians 13 and 12, here's what Paul said. I'm going to read this out of the Amplified because I think it's more amplified.
Yeah.
For now, he said, in this time of imperfection, so he is acknowledging the fact that he is seeing the world through carnal eyes.
Yeah.
I get it. My view is tinted. It's obscured because I'm imperfect. So in this time of imperfection, we see in a mirror or a mirror dimly, a blurred reflection, a riddle. It's an enigma, he said. But then when the time of perfection comes, we will see the world and we will see ourselves, specifically, we will see ourselves without any hue.
Yeah.
Without any red, without any yellow, without any obscurity at all. We will see it like we are looking at it face to face. Well, won't that be the day, right?
Yeah.
He says, now I know in part. I just know in fragments. But then I will know fully, just as I am fully known. So he acknowledges the fact that in his human existence, that he is not seeing the world clearly.
Yeah.
And we have to acknowledge that too, that our view should be in contrast to the biblical view. So as Jesus comes and says to them, he says, this is how the world sees leadership, but this is not how you should see leadership. And I know that when we start talking about this conflict resolution, there's going to be spirits and feelings that will rise up inside your heart that you're going to say, that's not right.
Yeah.
That doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't feel right because we are looking at it through the carnal glasses.
Yes.
But we can't discount what Jesus is trying to tell us. A Roman historian observed this about humanity. His name is Tacitus. He says, the lust for power, for dominating others, inflames the heart more than any other passion. So the lust for power and the need to dominate others, he says, inflames the heart more than any other passion.
Yeah.
And I believe that. I believe that's true. This is the reason why we bully others. Think about this.
Yeah.
We were talking about this in Bible study the other night with a family we're teaching a Bible study to, but we're born sinners, right? You don't have to teach a kid to bully another one.
Right.
It's my toy, I'm going to take that from you, and you don't have to teach a kid that. It's just our carnal nature. It's bullying. And the reason why we bully others is it makes us feel superior.
Yeah.
If I can make you feel less than me, and I'm better than you, stronger than you, more important than you, then that makes me feel better about myself. It's the bullying concept.
Right.
It's that competitive nature. I'm going to win. I want to be better than you. I want to win over you. Almost everything that we do that involves other people is based on the premise that is this tainted view, this mirror in which we see ourselves, okay? And this is how we see ourselves. When we look in this tainted mirror that Paul was talking about, we don't see truly who we are. We see ourselves puffed up. We see ourselves with an overwhelming passion of entitlement.
Yeah.
I'm important, and you need to see me as I see myself.
Right.
Okay? Jesus is saying, no. That's not how you should see yourself.
Yeah.
You should not see yourself in a way that that you deserve, you deserve honor.
Yeah.
No, we don't deserve honor. I know we look at ourselves in the mirror and in this tainted view, and we say, no, we are entitled for our rights. Bless God, I have rights, and I'm going to demand that you give me what I'm owed.
Yeah.
I want you to, I'm entitled to my rights. I'm entitled to my feelings. I'm entitled to validation, and I'm entitled to acceptance. In other words, there's a whole agenda out there right now is that you have to accept me, and whatever my view is, accept me, agree with me. You have to like me. You have to support me. You have to honor me. You have to give me everything that I'm owed, or you have to face the consequences.
Yeah.
There's a whole movement right now. We see this in the transgender and the LGBTQ, whatever. That whole movement is disagree with me, and you're a hater.
Yeah.
Not only do you have to just give me, we need to give people human rights, basic human rights. We don't need to beat people up and make them feel shamed and all that. We need to treat people with respect as human beings.
Right.
And we did this wrong for, I say we, as a culture, as a world. We've done it wrong for thousands of years. We've persecuted people because of their religious beliefs or because of their, their sexual beliefs or whatever. We've always been very poor in handling that and taking away basic human rights. We shouldn't ever do that.
Right.
And I'm not a supporter of that. But there is those who have come from that who are taking it to another. Not all.
Yeah.
Some of them are like, hey, just let me be who I want to be and leave me alone. But then there's these others that take it a step further. And they say, listen, not only do you have to leave me alone and let me just live my life, but you have to agree with me.
Yeah.
And if you don't agree with me, I'm going to persecute you.
Right.
Now they're taking away our human rights, But this is stemmed from that pride, that entitlement, that I'm entitled for you to not only agree with me, but you have to, I have rights, and my right is for you to honor everything about me, whatever decisions I make, right? So, but this goes beyond basic human rights. And I use the gay, lesbian, transgender illustration only because it's easy to identify. We can point to the legislation and what they're trying to do, and they're trying to force their ideology upon everybody, and they're trying to make it so that we, like in the church, could be persecuted or prosecuted, I should say, for believing otherwise.
Yeah.
And so I only use this illustration because it's easy to identify right now. But the reality is this: we all have this sense of entitlement and pride. All of us.
Yeah.
It's inside of us. 99%, I would say, if not all, of offenses come because someone didn't give you validation that you feel like you deserved.
Yeah.
I got looked over. I didn't get invited to the party. I wasn't considered, whatever. 9 times out of 9, when somebody is talking to me about how they were offended, it is always down to that, well, I didn't get treated the way I should have.
I deserve more respect.
I deserve more respect. And it may be true. Maybe we do need it. Maybe they were mistreated or disrespected. But that's where the offense comes in. I'm entitled.
Yeah.
Don't they know who I am?
Right.
Don't they understand where I've been? Don't they know the good I've tried to do? And still they're coming against me with this. So, but I see that same spirit of entitlement in every situation involving people being offended by another person. I see it in my congregation. I see it in family members, and I see it in myself
Yeah.
every time
Yeah.
I'm offended.
And that's why we've talked about that when you are a leader, you do not step up onto the podium,
Yeah.
up on a pedestal. You step down
That's
to
right.
lift others
So
up.
that's what Jesus is trying to say. He says, guys, listen, if you're going to be in leadership, you're not going to be the boss.
Yeah.
In fact, you are going to be the least
Yeah.
of all of them.
A servant.
You're going to serve. And so he goes on to this next in Matthew chapter 20. Oh, well, here's what he says. But it shall not be so among you. But whosoever will be great among you, let him be your servant, or the minister.
Right.
And whosoever shall be chief among you, let him also be your servant. So the typical carnal worldview of leadership is best modeled by the single dictator who rules and has power over everyone else in the organization, right?
Yeah.
So in this scenario, the dictator is served by everyone else.
Yeah.
He demands honor. He demands you to bow to him and to give him all the accolades that he needs. This is the boss, right, in the organization. The boss is at the top, and everyone else works to serve his vision, his advancement, and his agenda. Jesus, on the other hand, he teaches that the greatest person in the organization is actually the person at the bottom.
Yeah.
So he says, if you look in the mirror and you see yourself as the top dog, you're looking through those hue-colored glasses that are not, they're carnal.
Yeah.
You need to see, let me wipe those clean for a minute.
Yeah.
Let me show you who you really are. And who you really are is a servant.
Yeah.
Now, we can't argue. No one would argue that Jesus Christ, among his disciples, was the greatest.
Right.
He was the best of the best, right? If there was a top dog, it was him.
Right.
Here's what he said. Jesus says, I did not come to be served.
Yeah.
Follow my example. I can look in the mirror and I know exactly who I am, right?
Yeah.
He was not confused about who he was. I am the God that created all of heaven and earth. But I didn't even come here to be served. I came to serve you.
Yeah.
I'm not here demanding honor and demanding all of these things. If you want to follow me, follow me. If you want to, worship, then I'm not demanding anybody to do this.
Yeah.
Who do men say that I? He didn't tell him, hey, do you know who I am?
Yeah.
He would ask him, who do you say that I am?
Right.
I want you to tell me. He wasn't, you see what I'm saying? This is his whole premise is for us to not think of ourselves more highly than we ought.
Right. And you brought this out to me the other day, talking about the Apostle Paul, and you've been all over it. But you just read the scripture that said, "He that is chief among you, let him be the servant."
Yeah.
Well, Paul starts out saying, "I'm the least of the apostles," in Corinthians.
Yeah. Right.
So he's still an apostle. He's still high, but he's the least of them, at least.
He's the least of the apostles. Yeah.
Then he moves on and he says, "I'm less."
2 years later.
He says, "I'm less than the least of all of God's people."
Right.
So he's still God's people, but
Yeah.
he's the least.
He's the least,
He's having humility, and then he says, "I'm the chief of all sinners."
Yeah. And this was a progression over the years.
Right.
If you look at where he wrote them in the letters,
Yeah.
it was almost 2.5 years or 2 years in between each one. So the first
Yeah.
time he says, "Hey, I'm the least of the apostles." The next time he says it, he says, "I was." What does he say?
Less than the least of all God's people.
I'm the least of the saints.
Yeah.
And then at the end of his life, he says, "You know what? I'm the chief of all sinners."
Yeah.
So as his influence increased, as his authority increased, you can see that he began to see into that mirror more clearly and more clearly and more clearly. And as his influence increased, his humility increased with it.
Because he understood. He saw through a glass darkly.
Yeah.
He understood that God had him. But he hadn't yet apprehended what had apprehended him.
Exactly right, yeah. He's still, God's still wiping my glasses clear. But the more I'm close to Him, and the more I serve Him, and the more influence I have, and the more people honor me, the least I feel.
Yeah.
And this is, oh my goodness, this is the heart of humility that God, I believe, is trying to get in every church leader, that if we could see ourselves the way Paul saw himself,
Yeah.
is the higher we get on the totem pole, the lower we should feel among the people.
Yeah. When sinners come in, we can't come from a perspective thinking that we have it all together.
Yeah,
Because
right.
even the Apostle Paul said, I don't have it all together. I haven't apprehended everything.
Yeah, I have not apprehended yet. Here's one thing I do. He said to let go of those things that are behind me and reach for those things that are before me. So it's natural for us to want to be recognized. He talked about in
Right.
this other article here in Luke chapter 14, he talked about how if you're invited to a party, even if you're the honored guest, don't go sit at the honored seat. Go sit at the lowest seat, right?
Right.
And it'd be better to be promoted
Yeah.
than to be, moved down or
Yeah.
like, hey, that's not your chair. But his point wasn't, to avoid embarrassment. His point was, guys, even if you are the pastor of the church, this way gets me. I can't stand this. This is a pet peeve of mine. If we're having some kind of an event and there's food being prepared, and they are always, and like I'm always talking to people, right? I'm always, in the sanctuary, and maybe they're waiting for pastor to come get the first plate.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, well, we don't do that much anymore because I have protested. I'm like, no way am I the first one to get the plate.
Yeah.
I would rather be the guy to get the last plate. In fact, I'll forfeit my meal
Yeah.
to make sure everybody else gets food.
Yeah.
So we have these big conferences, and we got to make sure that the best and the highest of the totem pole get their plate first and get the best seat. I just don't think it's. It's just me.
Biblically, it would be you behind the counter with the servant's
That's what I'm
spoon.
saying. That's what I mean. So we have a district meeting every year, and we have to feed, and they ask my wife to be decorate and to serve and stuff. I tell you what, I would feel, and I have been in situations where I haven't been serving, and it's awkward. It's awkward to be sitting there and being served by people.
Yeah.
Who are at least our peers.
Right.
I mean, I'm like, this isn't even cool.
Yeah.
I need to be serving. Anyway, and I'm not saying, hey, I'm the Apostle Paul and all that, but I'm just saying, Jesus is telling us here in Luke, it's not about embarrassment. Don't sit at the highest seat because you don't want to be embarrassed. Don't assume it. Don't assume that you deserve this honor, because we're not in this to get for the honor. We're not in this for filthy lucre. We're not in this for any other reason but to serve other people.
Yeah.
And when we begin to see ourselves in the light that we should, then first of all, we will not be offended.
Yeah.
Because if somebody dishonors us or leaves us out, I won't be offended because I wasn't expecting it. Right?
Right.
I'm not expecting to be honored. I'm not expecting to be called and to be used or whatever. If they pass me up, great. They probably found somebody better.
Yeah.
Right? But it's natural for us to want to be recognized. That's what he's saying here. Jesus says it's natural. That's the worldview. It's the carnal worldview, is to be recognized. You want to sit at the head of the table. But here it's that entitlement and pride that gets a hold of us. We have this sense of pride about who we are, and we often feel like we are owed something from other people. Here's what I've heard this. I've heard this recently. I should have gotten more respect out of this individual because of my position. Don't they know the position I hold?
Yeah.
Of my age? Don't they understand that I am their elder?
Yeah.
I then deserve this respect. What about gender? I'm a woman or I'm a man or whatever.
Yeah.
We demand to have respect because of these things, or even my color,
Yeah.
my ethnicity. Because of my ethnicity, should I deserve greater? Whatever.
My favorite is, didn't you know my dad was the pastor? You want me to call my dad
you want
right
me to
now?
call my dad? So this lesson here that Jesus is talking to us about teaches us that we should never require, never demand, and never even expect to be treated with honor by others.
Yeah.
Now, not dignity, human dignity. We all should be considered human dignity, and we shouldn't be treated like a doormat. And I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that we should never expect, demand, honor, or to be treated on some pedestal, right?
Right.
To be held up. So this lesson opposes the entitlement mentality, the lesson that Jesus is talking about with the don't sit at the head of the table. This lesson opposes the entitlement mentality. Even if you're greater or you are the greatest or feel that you're the most honored guest, then you still shouldn't sit there. The lesson here is not about table manners or party etiquette. The lesson is you've got to be a servant in every situation of your life. So servanthood is not something you do at certain times, or it's something that you do all the time.
Right.
It's constant. It's 24/7. Even when it doesn't matter. I said this before, that, of all the things that Jesus was teaching them, he took time to talk to them about how to sit at a party.
Yeah.
And you might think, well, that's pretty insignificant, right?
Right.
Like at what point are these guys going to be going to parties, right?
Yeah.
His point wasn't about a party. His point was about squashing that carnal worldview of leadership and of authority. And this has to become part of your DNA, guys.
Yeah.
Because if you see yourselves the way that I want you to see yourselves, then you'll never be offended. And the gospel will be able to spread no matter what they do to you.
Yeah.
So this is, trying to fast forward here, a leadership, I should say, is not a position. When somebody says that, I'm in a leadership position, I've heard this recently. I'm in a leadership position. I deserve this. And I'm like, that really pretty much goes against everything that Jesus is teaching us about leadership.
Right.
When you say that I'm in leadership and you deserve that, first of all, right there, you have that carnal worldview.
Right.
It shall not be so among you. So when somebody says that, I'm in a leadership position, they're usually describing somebody who's currently holding a management or an upper level position in an organization, right?
Right.
So people generally feel that a person's title, their position in an organization, determines their leadership role, right? Because I have this position, or I'm the director of ministries over children, whatever, then I should be honored and I should be regarded as such. However, this could not be farther from the truth. Leadership is not the same as management. So we can put somebody in a position because they can manage well, but that doesn't make them a leader. And we've talked about this before, but there is a huge difference between leaders and managers. And that is, managers are people who manage a process, right?
Right.
If we're talking about a production situation or production line, where you're trying to get a product made by different components, and there's a conveyor belt, and there's machines and people in place, and they, the piece of product goes from point A to point B, and it gets completed. So managers are going to manage that process, but the leader is going to manage the people.
Right.
And I would say manage, that's even a loose word. I shouldn't even use that word, but they're more concerned about the people than they are the product.
Yeah.
Managers focus on production and the bottom line. That's what they focus on. Like, I've got to get this widget from point A to point B, and I've got to do it in this time frame, and that's my job, and that's my only job. But a leader is more concerned about people on the assembly line than he is the assembly line itself.
Right.
Getting the job done will never be at the cost of the people. And for church, and you might think, well, what does that have nothing to do with church leadership? Just hang with me. So managers treat people no different than they do the gears that operate the conveyor belts production. Right?
Right.
I've got you here to do a job, and if you don't do it, I will find somebody to do it. You're out.
Yeah.
Just like they would replace a gear that if it wasn't working right. They'd have no care about people. So leaders, on the other hand, they train, they mold, they equip, they work with,
Yeah.
they mentor the people in order to get the production the way it needs to be done. So managers enforce submission. Leaders earn it.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that again. Managers enforce submission. We've got rules, we've got regulations, and I'm going to enforce submission. Enforce submission, I should say. Leaders understand that the only way to truly get people to follow them and submit to them is to lead them, right?
Yeah.
It's to walk in such a way that people want to follow you.
Right.
For the manager, people are a means of accomplishing the goals, but for the leader, the goal is the success, the growth, and the well-being of the people. Now, consider your role in the church. And maybe you're listening. What is your purpose? What is your job in the church? As a church leader, are you a pastor? Maybe you're a Sunday school director, whatever it is, outreach, whatever you do. What is your purpose in your position? What is it that you want to accomplish when performing your duty, whatever your duty might be? Like my duty is, if you're outreach director, your duty is to pass out 1,000 flyers this weekend. And I'm going to use the printer and all of these resources, a designer to design the flyer, and I'm going to do and I'm going to have people show up on Saturday to help me to pass out these flyers. Now, we can either be a manager in the process and just focus on the bottom line, like I got to get 1,000 flyers out. That's it. Or I can realize that my job here is not as a manager. My job here is a leader.
Right.
So I'm going to be more concerned about rubbing shoulders with and making sure that the people that show up to help me on Saturday are equipped, are loved, are appreciated, are held up, right?
Yeah.
What if we only get 500 out? What if we didn't get the job done? What if, you see what I'm saying?
Right.
We could get so caught up in trying to get the job done that we end up stepping on people
Yeah.
to make that happen. So for the barista, if you have a coffee shop in your church, we have a coffee shop.
Right.
So for the barista, is your role to produce the best cup of coffee? That's a pretty good, right? We wouldn't want to have bad coffee being served at the coffee shop, right? That would be a terrible thing. So is our barista here on a Sunday morning, is her job to produce a good cup of coffee, or is her job to serve the people?
Yeah.
Now, there's a huge difference. There's a huge difference. Because if it's about a cup of coffee, then you're a manager, not a leader. You'll focus on the coffee at the expense of the people who you're serving.
Right. Yeah.
Like my only focus is to make sure the milk is the right and all that and everything. And I'm not disagreeing that that's important.
Yeah.
But if you get so caught up in maintaining a rigid production process, you could begin to snap at the customers for not following the line rules.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You could value the cup more than you value the people.
Right.
What if you're a hostess?
Yeah.
What is your job? Our job for our hostess team is to get information from every guest that comes through the door. Well, greet them, obviously, but to get the information, right?
Yeah.
So is their job to do that? Is their job to get the information? Or is their job to serve everyone who walks through the door?
Yeah.
Now, if you don't get this right, then you're going to get it's going to be a train wreck.
Yeah. I just saw a video today of Mattress Mac
Yeah.
You know, everybody in Houston loves Mattress
Oh, yeah,
Mac
yeah.
because he's always helping people.
Exactly.
And he's ranting about how Centerpoint
Oh, yeah.
didn't want to fix some certain things. They're the power company.
Uh-huh.
Didn't want to fix some certain things because of their bottom line and all this stuff. And he opened up his big facility for people to come and charge their phones and all this.
Wow.
And he just starts, you know, ranting about how it's about people.
That's right.
It's not about selling mattresses.
Nope.
It's about people having a place to sleep.
You know why Mattress Max is successful?
Why is that?
Because he doesn't sell furniture.
Yeah.
He sells dreams and happiness.
Yeah.
That's why he's successful.
Yeah.
And he's about the people. And that's why people go buy from him, even if it's more money,
Yeah.
because they know he is about them. When I go into Gallery Furniture, he's there and he'll greet you when you walk through and ask you for if you want a piece of pizza.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to do that. He's made his millions. I mean, he's right. Why does he even need to be there? Because he's not selling furniture. He's selling service.
Yeah.
So let me get back to this hostess thing. If the hostess is all about just getting the information and they lose their focus, they don't understand what their job is. Too much focus on the process for them could result in tackling their opponent and waterboarding them for their information. Like, I'm going to get your name and your telephone number. I'm going to get this information out of you if it kills you. Right?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Is they could become rude to the point where they have forgotten that their purpose is not about getting the information from the people, but it's about the people.
Yeah.
And it's about relationship. Ushers, same thing. If maybe you're the head usher at your church, if your focus is on rules of seating rather than the people who are sitting, then you're missing the entire point. We could actually become our own worst enemy in an effort to create an environment that's conducive to hospitality, right?
Yeah.
You could create an atmosphere of hostility rather than hospitality, and you drive the people away, all for the cause of the process.
Yeah.
Listen, we've got rules, we've got regulations, we've got this, we've got that, and if you don't submit, bless God, then I'm going to call you out. That's not the right focus. That's a manager.
Right.
I got to manage. I got to manage the aisles. I got to manage the people. I got to manage the seating. Nope. It's not about enforcement. It's about accommodation. So if you're a team leader in your church, ask yourself, who do I serve? Who do I serve? Right? Well, here's the answer is simple. First of all, you serve everyone on your team. Your team does not serve you. If you're the outreach director of your church and you've got 5 or 6 people on your team, they don't serve you. And you should never think that they do.
Right.
You serve them. And you should act that way. You should make them feel that you really do serve them. And so not everyone on your team, but also everyone else in the church. And then everyone who visits the church. And everyone who's a candidate who has yet to visit your church. That means everybody in the community.
Yeah. Well, if the powerful thing about this is if you don't treat them like they need to serve you and you serve them, then they will serve you.
That's exactly.
Not because they feel like they have a duty or whatever, but because you've taught them servanthood.
That's right. So leadership, why will they follow you? Jesus said this, guys, listen. He says, no greater love than a man who will lay down his life for his friends.
Yeah.
That's serving. If you know that I will serve you to the point where I could lay down my life for you, will you follow me? And they will absolutely follow you. So if I'm serving the best interest of my leadership team and I am doing everything that I can for their advancement and their promotion and all, just to see their fruit, right, they're going to follow me.
Yeah.
And they're going to do it without question. But this is the key, though. Leaders need to focus on relationships, not process. So your relationship between those who you serve is more important than anything else.
Right.
Your relationship with the people who you serve is more important than putting on the best ladies meeting or the best men's outreach thing or the best whatever. whatever it is, you're the best Sunday school, whatever. You cannot say, well, we're going to have the best Sunday school department at the expense of our teachers. You can't ever say that. You have to say that my job is to support and to encourage and to train and to equip and to serve the teachers.
Yeah.
That's my job. And in the process, we're going to have a great Sunday school department, right?
Right.
So our relationship is more important than anything. It's more important than your entitlement. It's more important than offense. It's more important than anything. And I've said all of that. How long have we been going here?
About an hour.
50 minutes.
Okay.
I've said all that to say this. Again, this is the foundation to set this up, okay? Let me get to here. The relationship between others is more important than anything else. Therefore, it becomes the chief responsibility of the team leader, or I should say the team servant, right?
Right.
To become the resolver of the conflict.
Yeah.
If there's anybody who's going to be the big brother here, it's going to be the leader or the servant, the chief servant, right? So you're required as a church leader to rise above personal offenses. Okay? Your feelings are not on the table. Your feelings should not be on your shoulder. Take them off your chest.
Yeah.
Don't bring them to the house of God. Your feelings do not matter.
Yeah.
And when your feelings do not matter, and you can look in the mirror with the Jesus-colored glasses, right? And you can see yourself as the chief of sinners. And you can say, I'm the least of all. And you have no reason to demand honor. And if somebody's in your face and dishonoring you, you have no feelings of retaliation. You have no feeling of how dare they. All of those are gone. And so now you can actually begin to move in conflict resolution.
Yeah.
Because your feelings are off the table. And that is the only way that you can resolve conflict, is if your feelings are checked.
Yeah.
Like, I have nothing. Jesus said, there's no way for me to be offended. The devil has no hook with me.
Yeah.
Because I can't be offended.
Wow.
So I close with this. I said all that to say this. When I was in management, I worked at a company, a $300 million company. I was a division president, but I wasn't always a division president. I worked in the field and as a construction manager, and worked my way up, whatever. So I was the division president of a $300 million company, and we had some sales guys working for us, and we needed to promote somebody to become our sales manager. It was an executive position. So we promoted this guy. His name's David. And he became our sales manager. Well, in the process of him learning his position, he offended one of the sales ladies. She wrote a letter to Human Resources and said all kinds of bad things about him. I mean, said he was a racist and said he was this. Now, because of this dude's complexion and his last name, a lot of people don't know, but he's like 90% American Indian.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's a minority himself, right? But people don't know that. But anyway, so here he is. He's this American Indian, and he's being accused of being a racist and all this stuff. And so we're in this meeting, okay? Now, I've got to set the stage. We're in this meeting, Human Resources, her name's Barb, and she's there talking to us, reading the letter, and we're trying to figure out how we can solve this problem with this sales lady. And, of course, Dave pipes up, and he says, well, what about me?
Yeah.
Well, wait a second. He says, what about me? What I've got, all this stuff she said about me, I am offended.
Yeah.
And Barb looked at him, and she said, shut up, David. Welcome to management.
Yeah, wow.
And
feelings don't matter.
And I looked over at him like, bro, you're at the big boy table now. This is not stuff we talk about here.
Yeah.
You left your feelings at the door when you accepted the position
Right.
of being in leadership.
Yeah.
We don't wear our feelings here. We don't get our feelings hurt up here.
Yeah.
This is where we resolve conflict.
Yeah.
And
wow.
I never forget it. And if this was a title, we're going to title it this, Shut Up, Welcome to Management.
Wow.
Because that is the truth. When you take a position in the church leadership role, shut up and welcome to leadership.
You mentioned.
Go ahead.
You mentioned the mall incident.
Yeah.
So the guy was offended.
Right.
So I was thinking, what am I going to tell him? To tell him basically, you need to back off and show some respect.
Yeah.
But never say it like that. And I remember you came to me and you said, just apologize.
Just say I'm sorry.
And then I called him. And he wanted to know what YouTube playlists we use for our worship music in the foyer.
Yeah.
He wasn't even offended.
He wasn't even offended. We had the sideline conversation about how to handle the offense, and then you called and he wasn't even offended.
Yeah.
We were like, oh, forget all that. Anyway, so this was the foundation for a church leader to understand that, you know what, you don't have your feelings anymore.
Yeah.
They don't matter.
Yeah.
And I actually had somebody, you mean my feelings don't matter? And I said, nope, not anymore.
Servants apologize when they're not in the wrong.
Servants apologize when they're not in the wrong. But that's for next time. So this was lesson 1 on resolving conflict.
Right.
So we get into lesson 2. We're gonna go through. I'm telling you what, you can use this in your marriage. You can use this in your workplace. You can use it in your church. No, I don't care what setting it is. This conflict resolution stuff is going to work no matter what position or situation you find yourself in, because it's biblical.
Yeah.
It's gonna. So stay tuned. Tune in next week. We're gonna get you fixed up with conflict resolution 101. Really, it's just basic stuff.
Yeah.
Praise the Lord.